It's the Shopo Hour on News Radio 830 KHVH.
Once again, 7:09 in the morning. It is the Rick Hamada program. It is the Shopo Hour. Now we're going to see, let's see what happens. My 10 to your 20, that we crack the mics in studio, and that all three are going to work. What do you think the chances are?
100 to 1.
100 to 1. Oh, gosh, that's a 10. Carry the 2 times 3, 4. Listen, again, I want to reiterate, we don't do math on this program because your host cannot do math. The boys are here, and it is a delight to welcome back Bobby Cavaco, who is in Chair 1, President of SHOPO. And Bobby, it's so good to see you.
So good to see you too, Rick. Happy New Year. Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy Monday.
Well, it is happy. I am happy on this Monday to see all the fellas. He is the Vice President of the Speedo Fan Club, featuring...
There we go.
We'll get right to the chase.
Sure.
He is Vice President of SHOPO. He is, again, brother Steve.
Rick, thank you. Always happy and grateful to be here with you and your listeners, and thanks for having us back in 2025. We appreciate it.
It is an absolute pleasure. He is the most handsome man in this studio because he jotted it down on a piece of paper, handed it to me, and said, I am the most handsome man in this studio. He is Brother Nick.
Yes, thank you. And your check is in the mail, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, I'll throw it against the wall and see if it bounces.
It will not.
Okay, we're all G in the hood. We're all G. First show of 2025. The last program that we did together, we looked at 24. 24 is in the rearview mirror. However, there's some carryover in some of the priorities that we have in our community through the eyes of SHOPO. We'll start with you, Bobby. How does 25 shaping up? What's top of mind with you as leader of this organization?
Top of mind, we have two main issues that we're looking for closure on. First one is a COVID hazard pay, which has been going on for about 5 years now.
Wow.
We still have 3 out of our 4 counties that are still not settled yet. So we're still working on that. Each individual county has its own grievance. So we're working to get that settled. And then the second is our new contract. So we're currently in negotiations. The current contract right now that our officers are working on expires at the end of June of this year. This Friday we'll be picking an arbitrator for our arbitration. So we'll have hopefully a decision on time so that the contracts will run into each other seamlessly without delay. Those are the 2 things that we're working on.
Steve, want to expand a bit?
I'm sorry, Rick. I was actually thinking top of mind stuff for me. I thought we were going to hit fireworks.
We will.
And then that terrible event with that 82-year-old man yesterday at Alamoana Mall, the robbery, where the offender basically carjacked him, and officers from D1 needed to respond. So that was just what I was thinking. To circle back on what Bobby said, absolutely top of mind for the members. We're looking to get hazard pay, as Bobby was alluding to, Honolulu County, Big Island, and Kauai. Maui so far has been the only county to step up and recognize that our members were deserving of that. And then obviously, as Bobby articulated, we're moving forward with getting a contract for our labor force. So big things coming up in 2025 for us.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Brother Nick.
Yeah, thank you. So top of mind union-wise the last few days is the fact that President Biden signed into law the Social Security Fairness Act, restoring Social Security benefits for people who are public servants, including law enforcement and first responder personnel, finally getting them back the Social Security benefits that they paid into prior to being law enforcement or first responders. Mm-hmm. That was signed yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a big win for us because there are several members in our union here in SHOPO, several law enforcement officers nationwide who had jobs or careers before they became law enforcement officers and were paying into Social Security for quite some time. I was, Robert was, Steve was. So Robert and I lobbied with NAPO in Washington, D.C. back in April, I believe, to propone these modifications to legislature. And luckily it was successful, and President Biden, to his credit, signed it into law.
What's the next step? What will occur now that it's signed? Procedurally, what happens?
Procedurally, I believe essentially first responders who are looking to get Social Security benefits when they retire are eligible for them. So are their spouses to a certain extent, because the spouses' benefits were curtailed as recipients of pensions if the first responder had passed away. The spouse's Social Security benefits were curtailed, if I'm not mistaken. And then I'm not too sure about people who already have retired from law enforcement, but I would say that they definitely need to pay attention to this, because common sense tells me that they would be eligible as well.
Yeah, they'll all be eligible. So to synopsize, Rick,
Sure.
Let's just use you as an example. Say you did 10 years on the radio here, and then you decided to become a police officer, get into the department, you do your 25 years of service, you reach the age of Social Security, you retire from the department, you put in for Social Security. Let's say your Social Security statement is supposed to say that you're supposed to get $1,000 a month. But because you're currently collecting a public pension, your Social Security check is going to be penalized 2/3. So you won't get 1,000, you'll get 300 and some odd change,
Right.
because you're collecting a public pension. So that's what public servants have been dealing with for 3 to 4 decades. And so now this passage of the bill repeals that act in entirety, and now you get the full amount. So if you're supposed to get $1,000, you get $1,000 on top of your pension from the government.
It's interesting because I'm just now starting to get a practical look at Social Security now that I'm an old man. And as I was examining, is that while I remain employed, you're right, benefits to in the private sector, forget about it. And so it's gratifying to hear that our first responders are now going to get that full benefit despite another source of income that they've already earned. So, okay, that's a big development. That's good. Good to hear.
Thank you.
There are 2 words, and Chief should be with us on Thursday, but it is recruitment and it is retention. I mentioned carryover into the new year. Our levels maybe you can share with us membership levels, where we are now, and anticipatory of 25, if you will see major fluctuations in any way. Bobby?
I believe the past several recruit classes have been a little bit larger.
Okay.
I believe the department is seeing an increase in applicants. But, always the challenge is to make headwind on people retiring. So people going out and then people coming in, and just how can you be on the top side of that number?
Right.
But it looks like it's trending towards the upside. From what we see, the department is really putting a lot of effort into recruiting.
Okay. And Steve, from a retention standpoint, are members more willing to remain and work X amount of time above and beyond, or is there definitely a priority to retire?
Rick, I would say the latter.
Okay.
I would say right now the mindset is to retire. A lot of reasons for that. I was just thinking that's the importance of why we need a strong contract coming up, Rick. We need to recruit people. You had some of the trades guys on here, and they were talking about the benefits if you wanted to be a union carpenter, plumber, electrician. I mean, the trades guys, great men and women, I should say.
Yes.
We have to be competitive. If we view the law enforcement profession as more of a blue-collar profession, we really need then to be on par with some of the other, let's say, blue-collar type professions where you're making 6 figures to do a job. I would say that police work is a calling, and not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but we need a good contract so we can have some members stick around and also get new members and recruit new members. We've had a lot of people, Nick will probably allude to this, we had a lot of good people retire, man. I mean, a lot of people went out in December. Some of them surprised me. Like, I don't always keep in touch with everybody, but I'm like, oh, damn, she retired or he retired. That's a big loss. So I would say, Rick, right now, it's the latter. Now, that I'm not saying that's anybody's fault or we're negligent in that way. Sometimes people just want to do other things. It's time. It's time. But it's a big loss. You cannot downplay it. When somebody with that amount of time retires, it is a big loss, and you want to have people to come and kind of fill in the back, but it's going to take a while, Rick.
So, Nick, thank you for that, Steve. I want to turn to you, Nick, and expand upon what Steve has shared. However, in the prioritization of pursuing incentivization that you have on recruitment, is there a similar, and will the new contract reflect perhaps incentives to retain?
Difficult to explain in detail.
Okay.
We are working on several different facets regarding pay and benefits for the contract. Every time a contract gets renewed, we go through all of those things. We call them cost items. We go through all the cost items and run several different scenarios and several different variations based on projections that our union actually researches and pays for on its own when we go into negotiations and then arbitration. So yes, again, downside, I've said this before, can't talk about it. It's illegal and bargaining in bad faith if I revealed to you, the public or the membership, outside of the doors of negotiation, what those ideas are. Suffice to say, I think I can synopsize by saying we have some pretty revolutionary ideas on this one. Some things that I don't think anybody has ever really thought of applying here, looking at mainland models and also other trends, out of the box thinking. So yes, we're definitely on top of it. Now, as far as other issues going on, I would say that if we were to work with the department on other things, it would kind of be changing some internal cultural things within the department. And then, of course, trying to get public perception of law enforcement to a different level, which from my point of view has slowly but surely kind of been shifting more towards appreciation and support than it was several years ago, where it was, demoralizing, demeaning, and disrespectful.
I think I agree with you. I mean, just when I'm out and about, and when I have the opportunity to chat with an officer, the one thing I'll say this: there is. I'll give you an example. One of my family had to go to the ER not long ago, and while we were there were two officers that were at the entrance, and I just went over and introduced myself, and I wanted to thank them. We're in an environment where clearly there's a lot of tumult. They were dealing with situations that were very challenging, as I kind of saw, and I just wanted to spend a few moments. I can't tell you, and I want my friends to know that are dialed in, how important it is that we express our appreciation. It is so important, because it's so, as the gentleman kind of explained to me, it's very rare that someone will just go up and say, listen, thank you. And it means a great deal, as it was shared with me. So I'm hopeful, to your statement, Nick, that we do shift this, that we do turn this around. And the job that first responders are doing, I did the same with an EMT, because seeing the harried situation they were in every single day. So on that note, just wanted to say thank you for being here and representing some remarkable people that are dedicated to helping us. That's great. It's 7:23 in the morning already. See what happens? Bobby Cavaco shows up. The clock is on double time. It's like, love it. New Year's Eve. Ali Amanu, story that's dominated, continues to. I want to go around the table to get your thoughts. We're all pretty much aware of some of the news and what's been reported. Any perspective, anything that you would like to share through the eyes of our officers and more, just yourselves, please. Let's do the setup, and then we'll return with conversation about it after the bottom of the hour break. So with you, Bobby, what transpired?
it's a very unfortunate tragedy that happened all the way around for everybody that was that responded to the scene, from the first responders to the community at large that were there. I don't know if everybody realizes how big of a business fireworks is. It's probably close to $100 million. It's a business where some people that's their income for the year. And in order to tackle this issue and bring it under control is a monumental pass. It's not just going to be, let's increase the penalty for the statutes, and then that's going to be the be all end all. That's definitely not the solution. So that's my take on it.
Steve?
I can't even imagine being critically burned. You know, you go out in the sun too long and you think about that, and then I can't even imagine the pain, the agony, and suffering of somebody that has burns over 80 or 90% of their body, right? When I heard that happen, obviously it's a tragedy, but Rick, and maybe you'd agree, and maybe listeners, I'll be totally upfront. I was like, I'm not surprised. This was just, I'm not surprised. This is a tragedy. It's horrific. And my heart goes out to all those injured and the families that lost loved ones. And then right after that was, well, this was, I mean, is anybody surprised?
Yeah.
Wasn't it just a matter of time before something like this was bound to happen? And I'm just, it's horrible. And, but I don't think any of us sitting in this studio or listening or anything could say that this is a surprise.
Yeah. Nick?
So I'd start by saying, there's a difference between an accident and a crime. And this is often labeled by the media as an accident. And it was in no way an accident. This was a criminal activity, plain and simple. If people got hurt as a result of it, then they are victims of a crime. And if people committed that act, then they are suspects in a crime. Crime of hurting people, crime of damaging property, crime of disturbing a neighborhood and disturbing the peace, crime of importing, transporting, possessing explosives, illegal fireworks, violating laws that are already on the books, statutes, and ordinances. So I am sanguine to the destruction of property. And I do feel very bad for the people that got hurt. But I'm also very confused because, and we can talk about this in depth after, the laws are already on the books. Law enforcement is doing the best with what the politicians will give it to work with. We all know that our neighborhoods are frustrated. Fireworks are not culturally inherent in Hawaii. Not those types of fireworks. And every year, we go through the same cycle. The major of our narcotics division last year warned that this was going to happen, and he was right. It did. And here we are. And so we have to get out of the mindset of this is an accident. And we have to get into the mindset of this was a crime.
It is already 7:28 in the morning. Gentlemen, thank you for that very much. We'll pick it up after the bottom of the hour. However, talking to our friends who are dialed in, your telephone calls at 521-8383 with your thoughts, comments, opinions, reactions, and any message you'd like to share in regard to what transpired on New Year's Eve. The latest in the news is that you have 6 of those who are injured that have been transported to the state of Arizona. And because the burn center there, one of the best in the country, kind of indicates the severity of the injuries that were suffered. But if you have any thoughts that you'd like to share on the Shopo Hour, do so. I'm clearing the lines right now at 521-8383. That said, we're at the bottom of the hour already. 7:29 in the morning, and you're on News Radio 830 KHV8. Hey, welcome back. It is the Shopo Hour, and the brothers are in studio today. Topic of conversation, I asked them to kind of set the table for us in regard to the events that transpired New Year's Eve. Loss of life, tremendous amount of damage, both physically and more, and there is a move afoot with all kinds of reaction, thoughts, ideas. The boys will expand upon what they shared with us, but we want your calls at 521-8383 to just share what your thoughts and ideas are in regard to this story. Let's get started, and we're going to go to Kalihi, where Ed joins us. Ed, I want to thank you for your patience and your call. You are on the Shopo Hour. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I just wanted to share something that about 4 years ago, I went and got permit, paid over $100 for it, and then on the third day of fireworks sales, I went. All the fireworks was gone. I didn't have the time to stand in line at Don Quixote for hours just to get in, and I think so. When I called the fire department if I could get a refund, they said sorry, it wasn't like that. So I shared with the person at the fire department that I felt that you guys are like selling chili tickets, and then I come to pick up my chili and there's no chili. I think you guys got to have a better system, and I think that's what drives people to the black market. Because that year, I ended up, because I told my kids I was going to get fireworks, I ended up at the black market and spent triple of what I would have spent if I went to a fireworks store to pick up the fireworks. I think that's what drove people to the black market. And I think once you get a taste of the black market, it's all about, we're in a place of convenience now, where it's convenient to get what you want when you want it. And I think they have to have a system in place to so that people can go back to the traditional fireworks. I remember back in the day growing up, hardly ever saw any aerials. There's majority firecrackers, and now it's just crazy. I haven't bought fireworks for the last 3 years now. After that incident, I just chose not to buy, but enjoy watching now. My kids even this year, Dad, you buying? I said, no, I'm done.
All right, Ed, I want to thank you for sharing and your perspective. I am sure there's a bit of thoughts and ideas regarding your call. And I'm going to go to Nick first. Start us off, Nick, with what Ed had to share with us.
Okay, well, first of all, I apologize for you not being able to get any type of refund. Those permits are issued by the county, and if I'm not mistaken, vetted in some ways through the fire department and the fire chief's office. There's a difference between what they call consumer fireworks and display fireworks. I think the caller was talking about trying to legally obtain consumer fireworks, and those are the kinds of things that are like sparklers and firecrackers and whatnot. They don't go more than 12 feet off the ground or 12 feet in diameter. Those are the things that are commonly used in neighborhood. Those are the things that were probably he referred to a long time ago when you didn't see a lot of aerials. And I think those are the kinds of things that are quote unquote cultural. Okay, those are the kinds of things that you see at Chinese New Year. Those are the kinds of things that people are allowed to use at weddings and certain ceremonies with permits and whatnot. And regulated through permit. You have to have a permit to purchase them through a consumer outlet. The type of fireworks that we saw on Aliamonu are what are defined as display fireworks. Those are the kinds of things that you need extremely special permits to import, purchase, distribute, or sale to other people and then set off. And with display fireworks, you also need permission from the fire chief in order to use them. And you also have to be indemnified with an insurance plan that is of at least $1 million in value for payout in order to set those kinds of things off. And those are regulated as well. You can't do them within certain times. I believe it's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on certain days. And even then, if you wanted to go beyond that time, you had to get permission from the fire marshal in order to do it and so on. So you're talking about heavy regulations. If you wanted to go into what the penalties are for having those things without permits, we could do that too later.
Yeah.
But back to cultural sensitivity and what people like to do. There are certain cultures in Asia that do enjoy fireworks at Lunar New Year or what have you. There are also cultures that have nothing to do with using fireworks in Asia.
Absolutely
when it comes
nothing.
to celebrating New Year's or special events. There are Southeast Asian cultures that actually celebrate those events with water instead of fire. So I don't like that term.
Yeah.
I don't like that term. I think it's cultural to Hawaii in the sense that we've gotten so used to it that we just enjoy it as human beings. But we're not the only state in the union where this kind of thing is regulated or prohibited.
Okay. Thank you for that very much, Nick. Steve?
I kind of smirk a little bit when I hear it's cultural. Well, I don't know, 500 years ago, were there aerial fireworks? I mean, when you say cultural, what are you referring to? I like Nick's analogy with the Chinese New Year and the fact that he differentiated between, what was it, Nick, commercial fireworks and what was the other one? Commercial and what?
Display.
See, for me, Rick, when you talk about cultural, I would say you have to put it in the realm of display. And what we have going on in Honolulu County, to me, is an outrageous use of aerials. And I just don't see how you tie aerials in with cultural expressions. And I would say, again, respectfully, show me, and again, let's just say that culturally aerial fireworks were part of celebrations. Could we all agree that as time moves on, decades and years pass, that certain traditions are changed for the good of where the community's at currently? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
We have different values and norms now than we did decades, 100, 200 years ago. So I think this cultural, we want to make sure that we address the problem head on and stop this talk about cultural and make it so put on that. Because if we do that, I think it's going to hinder how do we fix what we're dealing with.
Thank you. Bobby?
I think the caller had a good point. I think he was pointing out that once the laws were changed and they took away the red firecrackers and the lower grade, just general firecrackers, the black market just shot through the roof. And I think that's the point he was trying to make. I agree with him. Right after they made that change.
So what struck me, and I'm going to go to the call right now, is the willingness to break the law. I told my kids I'm going to get them fireworks, so I'm going to go to the guy down the street and they buy behind the guy, and then I'm going to buy them illegally. So while we're doing that, the only question I have is, what if that was your garage? What if those are your kids? And I know that we've all gone through and aware of people that subscribe to this, but I never have, and it just didn't make sense. And I want to thank Eric for his call. I want to go to John in Kalihi. John, thank you very much. Scott over on the Valley Isle will be next. Good morning, John.
Yeah, I live here in Kalihi. And I was wondering how much these aerials cost, just for the information for everybody listening. How much to fire off one fireworks at that size, Plus, you're firing them off right next door to where I live, and they were just going one after another. It must be thousands of dollars, right? My whole yard was filled up with red paper.
Jeez.
That was the only question I had. If somebody knew, everybody'd like to know how much they cost.
All right, let's find out. Thank you very much for your call, fellas. Anybody with an idea?
Those cakes that they fire off probably start around 300 and go up to about 1,000, just for one.
For one.
For one.
What comprises a cake?
A cake is probably about. They have many different sizes. Yeah. 2 feet by 3 feet,
okay.
2 feet high, sits on the ground, one fuse, and then, it takes maybe 2 to 3 minutes.
Got it.
Then you have the 3, 4, 5, 6-inch motor shells, which are one shot. You put it in like a PVC pipe. You light the fuse, and it shoots in the air, and then the report. Yeah. Those can also run between $200, $300, $400 for one shot. So that's why I'm saying this. This is not $20,000, $30,000 for the people that are selling them in the black market. This is millions and millions and millions of dollars. So it's a very sophisticated networking system. Just look at the aerial drones, all the videos you see on social media.
Oh, it's incredible.
Can you name a street in Honolulu where there wasn't aerials being? So
unreal. Thank you very much for that, Bobby, and thank you, John, for your call. We're already 7:46 in the morning. Telephone number 521-8383. Scott, over on the Valley Isle, welcome to the program. You're on the Shopo Hour. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Unfortunately, I've been wanting to call your program regarding this subject for some time now. I am a burn victim. I spent 30 days in Straub Hospital, so I have a horse in this race. And the guy that was just describing the display versus consumer or whatever, that just makes a lot of sense. Another thing that I look at too is basically this is explosives that are being transported through our community, right? Through our harbors and dispersed into the community. And there's a huge black market for it. Just like illegal drugs. But my only comment, I guess, is I would just really like to have the lawmakers really fast track this and get a handle on it, because it is like totally out of control. I mean, the Central Valley of Maui was just like lit up as usual the whole way from Kihei to Kaului, Wailuku, Makawao. It was just going. I mean, yeah, like the guy was saying, it's hundreds of millions of dollar business. So my suggestion is, let's just please fast track this and try and do something about it.
I appreciate your call, and thank you so much, Scott. It is 7:48 in the morning. Let me run primetime traffic. We'll get responses regarding Scott's call and your telephone calls. If you'd like to join us, few minutes remaining. 521-8383. You're on the Shopo Hour. Welcome back to the Shopo Hour. Delighted you are with us. 7:52 in the morning. Want to get the boys and the fellas' take on Scott's call from the Valley Isle. Bobby, start with you if you don't mind.
I don't know, we were talking during the break. I forgot the last call.
I know.
The Maui aerial.
He was lamenting, and he was calling on lawmakers that will have to ratchet up and et cetera.
Yeah, I don't think that's the answer. No matter what legislative penalty you make, they're still going to do it. And then the question comes to differ. If enforcement is done and the people are arrested, will they be charged? Will they be sentenced? I mean, does the government or legislature or judicial system go that far with prosecuting and sentencing people for bringing in illegal aerials when we can't even do that for people committing violent crime? Mm-hmm. I just don't see it happening.
Steve?
Okay, so Nick brought up a great point. Excuse me. Some of these aerials, in lighting them off and possessing them, is a crime, right? If we take that mentality, then this is one illegal activity that most residents in all the counties seem to have no problem breaking, right? They have no problem breaking it. And I'll just say, and if the community determines what law should be on the book, do we in this matter, when it comes to aerial fireworks, say, you know what, accept the consequences, because if we make it more illegal, we drive the black market, right? So we don't want to do that. Are the prosecutor's office going to take the cases? Who knows? They're already overworked. I'm not saying I agree with what I'm about to say, but if everybody that lives in all these counties, because Bobby said on every block there is aerials. Clearly people don't think it's an issue. Maybe we decriminalize it. How's that? Now as a police officer, that's kind of radical to say, and I'm not saying that we should do that. But if everybody on every block and every house is like, I'm doing aerials every year, and if government represents the people, what do we do, Rick? Because I'll tell you right now, it seems like right back in 2000, you guys were alluding to this, if let's say we cracked down even harder, and Nick's got these stats, we already have laws on the books, but nobody seems to care. And enforcement, you can't put it on the local PDs to do this or the Department of Law Enforcement. We don't have the personnel if every other house on every block in every county is doing aerials. It's a huge, at what point do you say, Rick, you know what? Fine. Yeah. You do it yourself. And if people get maimed, injured, or killed, that's the consequence of these choices.
Yeah. Charlie Memminger, great newspaper columnist years ago, said if you want to eliminate prostitution in Waikiki, legalize it. Because nobody can stay in business with the amount of regulation, taxation, and businesses suffer. So make it a business, and you'll end it in that way. Nick, about 1 minute, and we'll go to more of our calls.
To the caller's point, equating illegal fireworks sales to drug dealing, I think you're absolutely right on the money. The conjecture return for sale is 5 to 1. That's how much the average importer makes. 5 to 1 is the street value, right? So are there laws on the books? Absolutely. You want to check them out? The caller was right. These are explosives covered under Hawaii Revised Statute Section 132. If you want to see what the ordinances are on Honolulu, look at RO 20-6. Glen Wokai wants to make civil penalties an issue. For those who are caught possessing, it's already there. In 20-6, there are civil penalties. We can take your things. We can take your house. We can take your articles of property if you're caught in possession. The legislation, it's already there. We don't need to waste our time making more laws. What we need to do is make up our minds. Are we going to take this seriously or not? And if we are going to take it seriously, then we need to fund law enforcement properly.
It is already 7:57. Final call goes to Dave in Waikiki. Just a few moments remaining, but Dave, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Rick and Shopo guys. I think the solution to many of our long-enduring problems is legalization, whether it's marijuana, gambling, prostitution. You can throw fireworks in there. I mean, everybody does it, and everybody knows that everybody does it. We're very hypocritical, and the legislature is blind as a bat. They don't even see this. They just want to, the politicians jump out there and pontificate. When it's a one-off generational incident, look like the Marco Polo fire, then they want to penalize 300 condominiums and put fire sprinklers in them. They go backwards. Why don't they just go forwards and legalize all this stuff?
Thank you for the call, Dave. And gentlemen, thoughts?
I think that's a fair question. I'm not advocating for it. I'm a law enforcement officer, and I have to deal with what I have to deal with. On the books, it's criminal and illegal right now, and that's how I'm going to treat it. But I do think that the public needs to make up its mind, and the legislators need to make up their mind. We've had 3 task forces in 14 years trying to cover this problem, 3 of them. And the conclusion of task force number 2 was that the biggest challenge in fireworks enforcement is overcoming the local community's high acceptance and tolerance for the use of illegal fireworks.
That's it. We're in the final moments already, gentlemen. And Nick, thank you for that. Final thought you'd like to share before we go?
No, thank you for the time, and Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Brother Steve, I want to turn it to you. Final thought.
No, Rick, thanks again for having us back in 2025. We're always happy to be on the platform and come in and have robust discussions about public safety and whatever topics you and your listeners might have questions about.
thank you for being here today. This young man, and I do stress the word young. Bobby, thoughts before we go?
No, 2025 will go by very quick. 11 more months until New Year's.
I know. Are you going to do how many days till shopping? To Black Friday already? I love it. I love it. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
As always. And we have just, right at the top of the hour, the Shopo Hour. Stand by. We're going to have open time together, and we'll cover topicality aplenty. In the meantime, though, we're coming up on 8 o'clock.